Morning. I enjoyed that song, girls. That was wonderful. I think we ought to give them a round of applause this morning. That was very, very well done. I hope that you are doing well today. It's good to be here. Good to see your faces and see some new faces that I don't recognize. It's good to see you. And familiar and unfamiliar alike, it's good to see you, good to be with you. And in thinking about what I was supposed to talk about this morning, what kept coming to my mind is what I talked about the last time I was here. And I couldn't get away from it. And so I'm going to repeat myself this morning because I think it's one of the most important passages of the Bible. And I think it's something that I need. I think it's something that we need. And it's the most vital ingredient of the church. And I wish you would turn in your Bibles to John chapter 13. John chapter 13. And if you have a Bible, I wish you would, or if you need to on your phone, I have it on my phone actually. I would like for us to read responsively. And I'll read verse 1, you read verse 2, and we'll go on. We'll go a ways until we come to a stopping point. I'll tell us then. But I want us to go through this together. John chapter 13, starting at verse 1. Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour was come, that he should depart out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end.
And supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him.
Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he was come from God and went to God,
He riseth from supper, and laid aside his garments, and took a towel, and girded himself.
and after that he poureth water into a basin, and began to wash the disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel wherewith he was girded.
Then cometh he to Simon Peter, and Peter saith unto him, Lord, dost thou wash my feet?
Jesus answered and said unto him, What I do thou knowest not now, but thou shalt know hereafter.
Peter saith unto him, Thou shalt never wash my feet. Jesus answered him, If I wash thee not, thou hast no part with me.
Simon Peter saith unto him, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head.
Jesus saith to him, He that is washed needeth not save to wash his feet, but is clean every whit, and ye are clean, but not all.
For he knew who should betray him. Therefore said he, Ye are not all clean.
So after he had washed their feet, and had taken his garments, and was sat down again, he said unto them, Know ye what I have done to you?
Ye call me Master and Lord, and ye say well, for so I am.
If I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, ye also ought to wash one another's feet.
For I have given you an example, that ye should do as I have done to you.
Verily, verily, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord, neither he that is sent greater than he that sent him.
If ye know these things, happy are ye if ye do them.
I speak not of you all. I know whom I have chosen, that the scripture may be fulfilled. He that eateth bread with me hath lifted up his heel against me.
And I'm skipping to verse 31. Therefore, when he was gone out, Jesus said, "Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him."
If God be glorified in him, God shall glorify him in himself, and shall straightway glorify him.
Little children, yet a little while am I with you. Ye shall seek me, as I said unto the Jews, whither I go, ye cannot come. So now I say to you,
A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another, as I have loved you, that ye also love one another.
by this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have love one to another. Let's pause there. Thank you. Lord, I pray that you would speak to me, through me. I pray that you would speak to every heart that is here. Guide us and lead us. Help us to draw closer to you and to love you with all of our hearts. Amen. This is one of the most momentous occasions in history. The calendar that we use today was split before Christ and after the resurrection by this very man. And this very event that is on the eve of Jesus' crucifixion and then eventually his resurrection, it's right ahead of us. These are like the last words. Do you remember last words? Cleo Phillips used to attend here, and he had heart problems, and I was with him in intensive care in the hospital, and he was getting ready to go to surgery, and the surgery didn't look like it was going to turn out very good. Didn't look like he really had a lot of hope to come out of this. And he was talking to his nephew, Danny. I forget his last name right at the moment. Fortner, that's right. And he was talking to Danny, and these last words that Cleo was giving were heavy. They were heavy with memories from the past, and heavy with things that were coming to the surface that maybe he didn't really talk about every day. Last words are very, very meaningful. And Jesus is having his last words with his disciples. And the domino is about to fall that is going to lead to his crucifixion. And we go back up to verse 1. It says that Jesus knew his hour was come, that he should depart out of this world unto the Father. He knew that this was it. Having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end. And there is such a heaviness about this meal. And this meal is like a Passover meal. Now, we don't really celebrate Passover, but you know what a Thanksgiving meal is like. There's sort of a formality to a Thanksgiving dinner. We all have maybe special napkins or special dishes, or there's a lot of preparation going to this meal. And in this meal, they didn't have a normal, like a dinner table. They had like a coffee table that was lower, like as close to the ground as a coffee table. And they were reclining sort of with the table right here and just sort of lounging with pillows sort of propping them up. And this isn't how they always ate, but this was a special occasion. And this was how they ate there. And they're sort of just relaxing around the table, having a long meal. And it says here, and the supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him. There are two opposing forces that are at work here. Jesus' last hours with his disciples, Satan is moving and conniving for a victory and to defeat Jesus. But it says, Jesus knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands. Now, is that comforting? You know, you might say, well, what about that surgery? Or what about that son or daughter or that, what about that grandson? All things are in his hands. That job situation, that lack of a job, that lack of a car, that whatever it is, all things are in his hands. And he was come from God and went to God. He knows all these things. He knows that he came from God, that he's going back to God. What are his next actions? What are his next actions? He riseth from supper, laid aside his garments. It'd be like me taking off my jacket. And took a towel and girded himself, and after that he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel wherewith he was girded. He began to wash their feet. Now, washing feet was very important in those days. The roads were shared with animals, and there was dust and there was dirt, and everything that animals leave behind would have been on those feet. And here he is washing their feet. This is not just a ceremonial thing. This is something that needed to be done, to wash their feet. This was a job of the lowest servant in the house, the beginning servant, the person that just got hired to be a servant. This is where they started out, was washing feet. It was the least desirable, and everybody put off that job if they could and shifted it to someone else, if at all possible. And here he is washing their feet. And he cometh to Simon Peter, and Peter saith unto him, Lord, dost thou wash my feet? What are you doing this small job for, this undesirable job? And Jesus says, what I do thou knowest not now, but thou shalt know hereafter. Jesus is saying, you don't know the message I'm trying to give. You don't understand what I'm trying to teach you or what I'm going to trying to convey to you, but it will dawn on you at some point. And Peter and Jesus have this back and forth, and I sort of want to skip through that. I want to go to verse 12. So after he had washed their feet and taken his garments and was set down again, he put I put my jacket back on. He says, know what I have done to you. Ye call me Master and Lord, and ye say, well, for I am. Although I just did a very lowly servant job, I am Master and Lord. Then he says, if I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, what should happen next? If I have washed your feet, ye also ought to wash another's feet. Uh-oh. Did he just give us more work? Did he just give us the most distasteful and undesirable job? What is this about? This is his last hours on earth, the last private moment that he has with his disciples. And he says, you ought to wash one another's feet. This seems like the most mundane, confusing, hard to understand. We're thinking of high and lofty things. Maybe build a church. Maybe do something great and grand and glorious. But no, he says, I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. You should do as I have done to you. Verily, verily, truthfully, truthfully, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord. Neither he that is sent is greater than he that sent him. And then he says something jarring. He says, if you know these things, happy are ye if ye do them. Can you imagine being happy washing somebody's feet? How? How can I be happy washing somebody's feet? Now, I know churches today, sometimes they have a foot washing ceremony. I've never been to one, but I can promise you if I were to go to a foot washing ceremony, my feet would never be cleaner. I would have the cleanest feet of anybody there, and there would be a race to see who could have the cleanest feet of everybody that showed up, right? Because we just could not accept that. Just the thought of somebody having to clean our feet or wash our feet is just hard for us to understand. We're sort of like Peter, thinking like that. That's just not right. But Jesus says, if you wash one another's feet, happy are you. He's not trying to teach some miserable existence or trying to tell them of some, be miserable so you can be happy kind of twisted type of thinking. He's saying, happy are you if you do them. And then he talks about Judas a little bit. And Judas is the first domino that leads to Jesus' arrest. He is betrayed by Judas, and then he's put on trial, and then he's taken to the cross. And this first domino falls, but I don't really want to focus on that. I want to skip down because Jesus is trying to get a message across. And he goes to verse 33. Little children, yet a little while am I with you. In other words, the hourglass is running out of time. I'm just on the verge of leaving. Ye shall seek me, as I said unto the Jews, whither I go, you cannot come. Now I say to you, these are the uttermost important words. He's about to leave. Things are winding down. So now I say to you, a new commandment I give unto you. A new commandment. Now, what is the word new there? Does that mean that there's now 11 commandments of one added to the 10 commandments? No. And the command to love one another is in the Old Testament in multiple places, but this is what could be termed a renewed commandment. Restating something that had already been said, restating it maybe in a new way. That ye love one another. How? As I have loved you, that ye also love one another. Now, how did he love them? In this specific chapter, in this specific verse, passage, how did he love them? By washing their feet. And he's saying, I command you that ye love one another as I have loved you. There's a saying that says, to live above with those we love, that will be glory. But to live below with those we know, now that's another story. Right? You're supposed to laugh there. It's sort of a chuckle, at least. Sometimes it's easy for us to think, well, I'm supposed to love the world, the people of the world that need love. And sometimes it's easier to love the bum, or the person we look at as undeserving, than to love the person across the aisle from us, or the person sitting in the same pew with us, or we can maybe show less love to the person we know than those we don't know. But Jesus says that ye love one another. And then he says the most jarring verse of all, by this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if you have love one to another. I know a man, he was trying to make cookies. And he put the ingredients in and mixed them up, and the cookies were not turning out. And they were just not turning out right at all. Well, come to find out, he had skipped the eggs, putting eggs in the cookies. And what happens when you skip putting the eggs in a recipe like that? Can anybody tell me? The eggs are the glue, right? So what happens? You have flour and sugar and whatever, and it just sort of crumbles and falls apart. There's nothing holding it together, right? And do you know it's possible for us to have a congregation where we have, church attendance, we have Bible reading, we have prayer, we have singing, we have giving, tithing, we have a lot of ingredients, right? But if love is lacking, what do we have? We just have these ingredients, but we don't have anything holding them together. The eggs are the glue. And the love, Jesus says, by this shall all men know that you're my disciples. Not if you do have all these other ingredients first. The main ingredient is we love. I was driving here and there was a billboard for Cracker Barrel, and it says, our main ingredient, we care, or caring, or I forget exactly how they said it, but they were saying love is our main ingredient. Have you been to a place that maybe the food was good, but if they had a really bad attitude, that's not good, right? Or maybe they had a really nice building, but nobody served you. Nobody came to take your order, or they let you set for a long time. The love is missing here. You can have good food and good buildings and good this, but if the love is missing from that restaurant, a type of love that says we're concerned about your well-being, then the whole experience is sort of a flop, isn't it? By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if you have love one to another. These are Jesus's last words to his disciples. This is the last formal gathering that he's having before the cross. And he says, this is the secret. This is the secret. This is what you have to know. This is what has to come first, is love for one another. Now you might be thinking, what if they don't deserve it? Well, the definition of love is something giving that's undeserved, right? If it was deserved, then we could just earn it like a paycheck, right? I earned my love this week. No, love is given without being earned. Just as Jesus loved us without us earning it, we are then to turn around and give that same love to the world around us. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 gives the best description of love. It says, though I speak with the tongues of men and angels and have not charity or love, I am as a sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains and have not love, I am nothing. If I give all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned and have not love, it doesn't mean anything. Do you know that you can feed people, you can provide for people, but if love is not the basis and the motivation of that act, it falls flat. It's just like cookies that don't have eggs. They just sort of don't work. Love suffereth long. You know what that means? Love has thick shock absorbers. You know what a shock absorber is? Something that you can hit. You can hit and hit and hit, and it lasts. It doesn't just fall apart. Sometimes we can have a really thin shock absorber. We're going, oh wow, that hurts. I'm damaged. I'm hurt. Right? Have you been that way? I think with all of this COVID and everything and all the chaos, it's easy to get that way sometimes, right? We can have very thin shock absorbers. Charity suffereth long. It is kind. That means it is warm. Kind. It is warm. It isn't It has a thick shock absorber, but it's warm. Sometimes we can say, yes, I love you. Yes, you still have my love. The words and the lack of warmth comes through, doesn't it? There's no love there. Love vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up, does not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own. On and on. If you want to be snowed under, read the rest of this chapter, chapter 13 of 1 Corinthians. By this shall all men know. And folks, my heart, I pastored here for 9 years. Rogers has a special place in my heart. I've prayed for you this week. I prayed for you just multiple times, just mentioning the different families and people that are here. And my heart is heavy for Rogers. And you might say, our biggest lack is we don't have a pastor. That's our biggest lack. Maybe that might be a thought that you have. But I would say, make sure the love is there. Love covers a multitude of sins, the Bible says. If we have love, we have a building block. If we don't have love, it doesn't matter if you have a pastor, it doesn't matter if you have who's around. And so I would say if you have somebody that you struggle to love, start by praying for that person. Lord, I'm struggling to love this person. And Lord, that's my fault, not their fault. Now, is that a hard prayer to say? It's my fault, not their fault? Because love is given undeservedly. Love should flow out of us like a fountain. And if love is stopped up against somebody, maybe the problem is you. Maybe the problem is you. Even a difficult person. So I would encourage you to say, Lord, I'm struggling to love this person. And I pray that you would help me to love this person. And you know what? God can do the impossible. He can help you to love that person. And what's amazing is we tend to think, like I said, we need to love the world, the random person in Walmart, and we do need to love them. But Jesus said, by this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, that you love the downcast. No, it's that you love one another. Because what's natural for us? It's natural for people to not get along and have friction and reject one another and push off one another and separate. But when you see a group of people that love one another, a group of young people, older people, in between, loving one another, there's something divine there. That's a divine thing. And so if you're struggling to love somebody, ask God, the author of all love, Lord, help me to love this person. Help me to love this family. Help me to love whoever is coming to your mind. Make them a focus of your prayer. And as there is a fountain of love in this congregation, when people come in or when people see you, they'll say, wow, that is God's church. Shall all men know. That's to be our stamp. That's to be our billboard, that we have love towards one another. Sometimes love in the family can be the toughest kind of love. They don't deserve it. They leave their clothes on the floor. They didn't pick up their towel. They leave the car on empty. You know what I mean? All these things. We have a whole list of reasons not to love our family sometimes. But God can help you. God can help you. And if I would say if you're being unlovable, don't just stay there. Try to better yourself. But the burden of loving rests on all of us to love one another. I love you. I probably don't love you like I should, and I think this is a journey of loving one another is something that never stops. never stops. But I pray that God would help us. I pray, let's stand.